My name is Dan Siegel, and it's a pleasure to introduce you to the book Mind. You may wonder, what would a book called Mind be about? Well, you guessed it. It's not only about mind, but it's about your mind, and about the question of why is it that most fields that study the mind, like where I came from, psychiatry, or the field that I've been trained in, psychology, or the fields of even cognitive neuroscience, short of just saying the mind is brain activity, why don't we define what this mind is? Of course, you may know that the mind is consciousness and subjective experience and information processing, like our thoughts and our feelings, but in fact, mind may be something more than that. And since the days of William James, from 125 years ago, or even 2,500 years ago, the time of Hippocrates, people have said the mind, our joys and sorrows, are just the output of what goes on in our head, what goes on in our brain. Well, this book, Mind, asks the question, is that the whole story? And the way I wanted to address these issues, that the mind is rarely defined and that we don't really know what this mind is, and is it just the brain and the brain's activity, I address by looking at the who, what, where, when, why, and how of the mind. And we dive deeply into your own experience of mental life, and then we look at the science of mind, and then go on a journey, an autobiographical journey that's professional in its basis by looking at how the field of mental health and other areas that discuss what the mind is but rarely define it, how those have evolved over the last 40 years. So in 5-year epochs, we explore a given topic, and in the end, it asks you as the reader to reflect on your own experience of mind. What is consciousness really all about? What is time? Is there such a thing as a purpose of life that we can extract from the science of the mind? And what I hope this book will do is give us a collective way of discussing these questions and open our own minds up to ways we are deeply connected with each other and the way we can bring health to our own mental life. So I look forward to your responses if you dive into the journey of mind with me in the book Mind, A Journey to the Heart of Being Human.
بینندگان با درود فراوان به برنامه مامتاک خوش آمدید. برنامه‌ای که امروز براتون تهیه کردیم در رابطه با مایند و یا ذهن و علومی که شناخته شده امروزه با یکی از بهترین تاپترین ساینتیستا که ایشون هاروارد گریجویت سکول به اصطلاح گریجویت کردن، از بک‌گراند ساینتیفیک میان، بسیار ساینتیفیک، و سپس به UCLA فاوندر به اصطلاح مایندسایت هستند و پروفسوری هستند که امروزه تمام میشن و توجه و ویژن و حواسشون به این هستش که مایندسایت، مایندفولنس، پیس و کانشسنس رو بیارن برای آن کسانی که اشتیاق دارن یاد بگیرن و در زندگی خودشون اپلای بکنن که دنیای بهتری برای نسل آینده داشته باشیم. It is my great honor to have you, Dr. Siegel, here today on MomTalk.
Thank you, Dr. Farnudi. And you add the last part too?
Yes. My married name, Farnudi Zahiri.
Zahiri, yes.
Zahiri. And
great to be here.
This conversation is one that I've been looking forward to for a long time, and it's such a pleasure and joy to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So let's dive in. Mind. Let's start with this cover. Can you tell us about the cover and how this cover was envisioned and created?
Yes, well, I was actually teaching at a mental health conference in Norway, the largest one in Scandinavia, and the day before, the director of the conference, a psychologist, invited me to go for a hike with him in this area where there's these fjords in Norway, and we were hiking along, and he had brought his camera with him, and he just said, "Hey, stay there. I'm going to take a picture of you." And he ran around to this other cliff and took a photo. And that evening, before the conference started, he sent that to me by email. I looked at it and I quickly wrote him back, "Can I use this for the cover of the next book?" And he said, "Of course." And so that's his work. Yeah.
So you went on
Lars Ohlers.
you went on a hike together, going back to the bottom line of many of your topics of conversations and education. It's about the relationship. So you go on this journey about the relationship, the two of you, and he has this idea, and he has this creative vision and moves away from you. So there's a little bit of differentiation there, and the capturing of the mui, which
that's beautifully said. Yes.
which I am so fascinated by that. I have taught our children who are young, they're 9 and 7, about mui, and I talk to everyone I meet about mui as it applies to mind and integration. And like you've always beautifully said in your interviews and your brilliant work, integration equals health and mental health, wellness.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Beautifully said.
Yeah. So tell us about that. Tell us about that experience.
The experience with him, or of writing the book?
Both.
Both.
Yeah.
Well, Lars Ohlers, the person who took the photo, himself, runs this conference. It started with just schizophrenia as the topic, but it expanded to larger issues of well-being. And so he had invited me to go there, and we became friends on this journey. And as you said, it was a part of our being together that allowed him to say, you differentiate and go there, and I'll come over here, and we'll link together in this photograph. So I never thought of it that way, but that's a beautiful way to think about what the photo represents. This example also, I think, captures in a visual image the reality that we all have a mind that feels like it's only inside of us. And in fact, in science, it's been taught the mind is just from your head. But if you go to the last photo in the book, you'll see how it sort of ends up. I don't want to have a spoiler alert, but it's right here, the last part of the text, the last page there. Keep on going, keep on going. So the last photo is one my daughter took on a trip she was on in Norway. And you'll see it's another cliff over a fjord, only this time instead of the person being alone, it's many people there. So I don't know if you want to, if you can show that to the camera.
Well, we're not going to show you. You're going to have to get the book to
there you
look
go.
at this. Okay, it's amazing.
But I decided to make that be almost the very ending of the book, because
what a way to end.
It was realizing that even though I was taught in my training the mind is a solo thing, it's not just happening inside of you, it happens between you.
Yes.
So, and that's where the we comes from, that it's not just a me, that is someone inside this body, but the we is equally important for identifying who we are. And the mwe, M-W-E, is one way of capturing it. In Farsi, I don't know if there's how would you do me and we?
So we would be ma.
Ma.
Me would be man.
Man.
So man va ma.
How would you make that one word? Mana.
Mana.
Mana. Beautiful. Mana. So now we have one for Farsi.
Mana.
That's great.
That's wonderful. And I love that you're looking forward to the next generation.
Exactly.
And it seems to be in your integrated mind, you're on a mission. I've followed you for years, and we talk about you, us moms and dads at Curtis School or other communities that we gather. We talk about Dr. Siegel all the time because we started educating ourselves with parenting from the inside out and your mindfulness training and your involvement with Mind Up and everything that is happening right now, in many schools. It's really a revolution. Integration of mindfulness and helping children become more resilient, healthier in their relationships, and evolving in a way that they feel confident in their own being. And you have been like frontier, the very first person that I personally in graduate school learned about mindfulness and all this science from a scientific, neuroscientific, interpersonal, neurobiological, scientific background. And as parents, we are so grateful. We are so grateful to all the work and dedication and your devotion to bringing health and joy and integration to our communities.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. It is a kind of collective mission I think we all have to be on. There's a beautiful term by Arthur Zions called pervasive leadership, and it means each of us can take on a leadership role to embrace the values that we have. And, you know, I think in parenting, we're really invited to say, how do I want to raise this child into this world? And in fact, into a world that we don't know exactly how it will be 5 years from now or 10 years from now. So part of, I think, what the goal of parenting needs to be is how to build within the child a kind of internal guide, an internal compass that allows her or him, as they go out into the world, to be prepared to navigate a world that we don't even know what it will be like. If we're just trying to deal with our own anxiety as parents and say, I want my child to get the highest grade point average and get the highest standardized test scores or get into the most difficult to get into college, you know, that we call the elite college. What we're doing is we're encouraging our child to focus on external accomplishments rather than starting with an internal sense of meaning and value that will stay with them as a source of resilience their whole life. So in a way, even though it's understandable, we want to pick something with a number to try to deal with our desires to protect our child and to have them be safe, we're actually doing just the opposite. Because the amount of time they're spending focusing on these external accomplishments, especially today with how much homework there is and how sleep deprived they're getting, is actually not preparing them for the world of the future.
Right, and for someone who attended an Ivy League school, right?
For
You
medical
went to,
school, not for college.
medical school, Harvard. What was that like? And what was your personal journey? I mean, you know, I look at you and you're the definition of a well-integrated and,
thank you.
You know, really healthy being. So, but you went to Harvard. And
Only for medical school, not for college.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I didn't go to an elite college. I went to you know, I had my own reasons, for financial reasons for going where I went to college, USC. My father was a teacher there, and it was free. You know, so that's why I went there. But and now it's a different kind of school. But back in those days, you know, it wasn't a high-pressured, academic school at all. They used to call it University of either Second Choice or University of Spoiled Children, either one. Now it's a different kind of university completely.
I see.
But back in those days, it was a different school. But what I mean by not focusing on which college your child gets into is this, is in many high-pressured high schools, which are fed into by high-pressure middle schools and elementary schools, there is a focus on a destination that you achieve through a grade point average, a standardized test score, a resume building set of activities that gets you into a very low acceptance rate college called an elite college. That's not where I went to college. But when you see what it does to those high school students, and the research shows people are getting incredibly stressed. They're burning out. These are these adolescents. They're filled with anxiety, and some of them become even suicidal. And I was just teaching up in the Silicon Valley where they've had a number of suicides. And the issue is, if we as parents are encouraging that set of values, think about it. Let's say 15% of kids in a high-pressure high school will get into one of those elite schools. That means 85% will feel like failures. 85% will be filled with a feeling of shame, a feeling of inadequacy, that they will carry with them their whole life. So what's the point of that? We can motivate kids. If you look at Angela Duckworth's studies on grit, we can motivate kids to know what their passions are, to follow their proclivities of their natural tendencies, what they get pleasure out of. It's called a passion. Then to figure out how to put that in service of others. That's called a purpose. And when you take passion and purpose, you have grit. None of that is about the destination. It's all about the journey. It's what Carol Dweck would call a growth mindset. But this isn't what we teach. we say, you must get into that school to be successful. When in fact, when you do studies of the particular college you go to, it has little to no correlation with how financially successful you will be, how academically successful you will be, how you'll contribute to society, or if you'll be happy or have meaningful relationships. So we think about that as parents, oh, get into that school, but it actually, when you look at the science, it does not predict what we hope it will predict. It does not guarantee anything. And so instead of supporting our child developing this internal compass, which is the journey, we focus on the destination. And I think it's really hurting our children.
Very well said. I personally will relate, in the community that we live in, there is a tendency to push kids, especially with overscheduling them, especially with, and oftentimes I have to sort of draw those boundaries and say, you know, no, we're not going to do this just because every student is playing club sports. You know, we're not going to join this path, because I think when you talk to children, you know, I have lots of conversations and mindfulness practices in our relationship with our children. They know, and they will tell me, you know, when my daughter was really passionate about gymnastics, she voiced her sort of inner desire and drive to want to do more gymnastics. And then she wants to do more, and we support her. But at the same time, when our son is feeling stressed because he's now having to practice too many hours of soccer because he's doing club soccer, and he says, Mom, this is too much. You know, I was responsive, or we were responsive to him, and we said, okay, well, you don't have to do this. We're going to stop.
Yeah.
And so we stop. And oftentimes when we have dialogue or conversations with parents, they'll say, well, what are you not teaching them, that, you know, they're not finishing something, that they're not, you know, is this interfering with them developing discipline and learning how to be a team player? So I'm challenged by that as a parent.
Well, there's no question. I mean, being a participant in sports teaches all sorts of issues of collaboration and letting go of perfectionism, and that's a beautiful thing. But if a child is overwhelmed because they're overscheduled, we need to realize that having downtime where there's nothing planned and it can get a little bored, or having playtime where they're just goofing around, you know, is so important for imagination to develop. So a lot of these students who are overscheduled don't develop this internal compass we're talking about, and they don't develop imagination. When they get into the workplace, they may be good kind of robots, but they're not good innovators, because they haven't been
Let me
given,
translate. This is such an important point. And for those of you that we have conversations, whether it's on social media or at gatherings, this is very important. It's coming from Dr. Dan Siegel with expertise and really a lot of wisdom. ایشون میفرمایند که موقعی که بچه‌ها زیاد از حد به اصطلاح یک سری اکتیویتی‌ها یا اسکیجول‌هایی رو انجام میدن و اون اوقاتی رو ندارند که خلاقیتشون رشد بکنه و در اصل زمانی داشته باشن که به صورت آزاد بازی بکنن، بازی با آزادی و خلاقیت، و اون اوقاتی که کودکان در اصل میتونن حتی کاری نداشته باشن و مایندشون به اصطلاح to just wonder، زمانی داشته باشن که بتونن در imagination، در اون خلاقیت ذهنشون سفر بکنن. و این اوقات رو اگر ما در کودکی، در childhood برای بچه هامون تهیه نکنیم، اونها چیزی به غیر از این که یک رباتی باشن، یه ربات هستن که یاد گرفتن که مثل یک سرباز مارچ بکنن و ربات باشن و در شغل آیندهشون، در روابط آیندهشون، در ازدواج یا پدری و مادری شدنشون مشکل خواهند داشت. بنابراین برای شمایی که دوست دارین با مایندفولنس و پیس لرنینگ بچه هاتون رو رشد و پرورش بدین، توجه بکنین به این به اصطلاح ویزدم، به این مبحث بسیار بسیار مهم و یه خورده cut back on overscheduling, be more responsive, pay attention to children's responses if they're feeling overwhelmed or tired, or just listen to them. I just listen to my children, and when they say, Mom, you know, and we've had these conversations, so they're used to it. Sometimes we even meditate, and I say, well, you know, put your hand on your heart and tell me, how does that feel? And when they're excited, they know, yeah, this feels right. And I say, okay, so maybe, you know, you're just tired. Maybe this week we'll take a break and we'll talk to your coach and see if that's an option, that maybe you're just, you know, trying to figure out how your body's adjusting to this new schedule. But bottom line, it's the relationship and it's the conversation.
Yes.
And giving them an opportunity or a voice to tap into their consciousness, because they're much more conscious than we are. It's my experience with our children.
I think that there's having that as a priority, you as a parent developing that, is very important. The question you raised before is also important to address. So if a child has committed to being on a team, and the team is depending on them for this season, it does make sense to say, look, you have relationships with your teammates and your coach, and barring an accident or something like that, you have a commitment to them and you will stick out this season. And if you decide not to pursue whatever the sport is, soccer, you can stop. So I think there is something to say about someone learning how to say, I don't really feel like doing this, but I need to, because I have a responsibility to others. So that's important too.
So that's a healthy push.
Yeah, that's a healthy push, and identifying why they need to stay at this point.
برای همین اگر فرزند شما در یه تیم سپورت هستش و در جایی وسط کار دچار خستگی میشه یا نمیخواد ادامه بده، دکتر سیگل میفرمایند که باید باهاشون صحبت بکنیم و بهشون این موضوع مهمی که بخشی از تیم بودن یا با تیم بازی کردن کامیتمنت هستش و اون قولی هستش که شما دادین که بازی بکنیم. بنابراین اون صحبت هم به همون مقدار میتونه مفید و سازنده باشه، ولی میتونن سیزن رو تموم بکنن، اون دوره رو تموم بکنن. در کیس خود من، پسر من، with our son, we did that. We finished the season. He was able to talk to his coach about wanting to explore a different sport, and now he's playing tennis, and you know, he's kind of managing his own energy or focus on that. But teaching them about focusing on their intention and what matters to them. And that comes oftentimes out from meditation, and I know you encourage mindfulness and meditation with children and schools.
Well, I think the big issue that meditation brings up is, what is the mind? It's what I try to address in this book and all my parenting books, is that if the mind is this self-organizing process, you as a parent can say, well, what does that matter to me? And the reason it matters is you can teach your child to do the two things that the self-organizing mind really does. It's regulating energy and information flow. Now, what are those two things? You monitor that flow. So when you ask your child, what do you feel in your heart? What do you feel in your intestines? What do you have as your thoughts? I call that sifting the mind, you know, sensations, images, feelings, thoughts. And you say, what's happening in your relationship with your classmates, with your teammates, with your coach, with me, your mom, with your dad. And in this way, they're monitoring, and you're inviting them to do that. The second thing is you can teach them to modulate the energy and information flow. So you can teach them, if they're feeling really stressed, to name the stress. I'm feeling really scared. I'm feeling really frightened, you know. They can name that. I'm feeling really sad. I'm feeling really blue. They can name that. When you teach them to name an internal state, it brings the state into equilibrium, into balance. So naming it to tame it is the phrase, and that allows a child to go, oh, I'm feeling a certain way, I can calm those feelings down.
Awesome. Just thinking about our three children having different temperaments and different tendencies, there are some kids who are just more inhibited or more quiet, more, internally strong. And then some kids who are a little more external and, they're more expressive, they articulate, they're more, I guess, left brain or, active with
Not
language.
necessarily left brain, but certainly,
right.
yes,
Yeah.
but I see what you mean,
Yeah.
yes.
So with those different types of temperaments and exploring the mind, because there's the emergence, my mind or the parent's mind and the teacher's mind, and the emergence of minds in classrooms or in the relationship. What's a good way to explore and get curious with those different tendencies and to differentiate, to bring those linkages together and integrate in that relational way? It becomes challenging at times, especially if your temperament or your tendencies are different, right?
It's an excellent question, an important one.
Yeah.
I know you know the wheel of awareness
Yes.
practice, and in that practice for us as parents, the way to think about it is the outside of the wheel are all the things that are the knowns. What you think, what you feel, what you're feeling in your body, what you see, what you hear, things like that. And then within the center of the wheel is the hub, the knowing. It's this more spacious place where we can connect to all sorts of things in our life. If we've lost a loved one, if we feel lost in our larger community or larger national world or global world, we can enter the sanctuary of the hub to gain peace and clarity about what needs to be done from the rim, right? So in parenting, it's the same thing. You may have all sorts of ideas about how your child should be. Those are points on your rim. But to really connect with your child, you do this from the hub, which allows you to be receptive and open to who your child actually is.
Yes.
So it begins with this internal practice of distinguishing your hub from your rim, so you don't get lost in your own expectations. And I call this presence, parental presence. And parental presence is really the pathway to a child seeing who she or he really is, rather than just changing themselves to conform to what you expect. So if you would like your child to be the best he or she can be being themselves, this is the way to do it. If you want your child to have an outward shell where they're just trying to have everybody think the way they are is making that person happy and that person happy and that person happy, they can have all these outward shells, but inside they'll be empty. So it's really quite simple. You drop beneath your expectations so you can see who your child really is. Your child will see their true self in your eyes from that place. And then if they have a temperament where they're more inward, which is more of a right hemisphere reactivity, they withdraw to novelty, you give them space to be like that. If they're more outward, and that is a left-sided, I'm going to go out in the world and do stuff, so you're right, that part is left frontal here, right here. And if they're more like that, then you see that that's the way they are. That has its own problems and risks, that come with going out so much.
So do we let them have their own personal experiences and taking those risks and learning from the social, emotional learning? Or as parents, do we become more of a joining and bring empathy and compassion into that relationship?
Well, the research is very clear.
Yeah.
And this is work of Jerome Kagan at Harvard. If you have a child who's highly reactive, they have a more right hemisphere response to new things, and they withdraw. There are 3 kinds of parenting he noticed, and he followed the outcome over decades. So we have the research.
Wonderful.
So here's what we know. If you overprotect this child who's called slow to warm up, and let's say they go to a birthday party, and there's a big bouncer there, and the child doesn't want to go on the bouncer. So you say, okay, well, let's just go home. You don't need to worry about the bouncer. So you take them home. You don't want them ever to feel uncomfortable. So you're overprotective. What Kagan's studies show, that child will always remain anxious. If at the other extreme, You go to the birthday party and you say, you know something, every other kid is in that bouncer. You throw them in the bouncer, right? They should do what they should
parents do.
They will become more anxious
Yeah.
and be even just as inhibited. So the middle way parenting is you recognize your child's, you mentioned the word temperament, your child's temperament, the natural propensities of their brain.
Right.
Nothing anyone did, it's just how they came out of you, the mom, you contributed to it as the dad, it's a genetic thing often. You go to the birthday party, other people are in the bouncer, your child refuses.
Right.
You have to deal with your own shame and humiliation, what's wrong with my child? That's your problem, you deal with that.
Right on.
But you give your child the respect, she doesn't want to go in the bouncer. Now, all the children are leaving to go to the birthday cake. Maybe your child wants to be in the birthday cake process, maybe not. Now she wants to go in the bouncer.
Right.
Now you take her to the bouncer. You sit down on the bouncer floor. She sits on your lap and she waits. Maybe you bounce a teeny bit and she holds on to you but looks scared. But then she sees it's okay. So then she takes a step away from you on her own and she jumps in your lap. And then she takes another step and does a few bounces and jumps in your lap. She takes 10 bounces, jumps in your lap. Pretty soon she is bouncing all over the place, not worried about hitting other kids, doing it in her own timing, and you have done exactly what you need to do. You have supported her, but widened the envelope.
Beautiful.
And
Let me
that's,
take a moment to translate.
and
this.
she learned,
Yeah.
the last thing, she learned that what she was terrified of doing, with your support, she could now do.
She could now do. واو واو اوکی دوستان این خیلی نکته مهمی هستش به خاطر اینکه من میدونم خیلی از ماها پرنتس های especially Iranian-American parents من تو خیلی از کامیونیتی اکتیویتی ها یا دوره ها و گدرینگ ها هستم میشنوم از مادر و پدرها میگن که بچه فلانی مثلا خجالتی شاینس داره نمیخواد یه کاری رو بکنه یا تولدا که میره یه بچه عقب میشینه یا نمیخواد بقیه رو جوین بکنه و مادر و پدرایی که پوش میکنن و میگن که چه این اداها چیه پاشو برو بازی بکن با بچهای دیگه و من دیدم اینو با چشای خودم چندین بار که بچه‌ها گریه دارن میکنن و ناراحتن ولی مادر و پدرها اینا رو پوش میکنن که برن با زور جوین بکنن این birthday party یا celebration یا اکتیویتی هایی که برای این بچه به خصوص overstimulating هستش. بنابراین آقای دکتر دانیل سیگل به نکته تحقیقات دکتر کیگن در هاروارد اشاره کردن و گفتن که تحقیقات به خصوص longitudinal studies اینا دنبال کردن بچه ها رو برای چندین و چند سال و به این نتیجه واقعی ساینتیفیک رسیدن که دوستان بچه ها رو نباید پوش بکنیم وقتی که تندنسی هایی مثل شاینس یا انهیبیشن و این نوع به اصطلاح پرسونالیتی هایی دارن در صورتی که ما میتونیم اونها رو کمک بکنیم به این صورت هستش که در کنارشون با به اصطلاح پیشنس با آرامش با مهربونی با صبر و صبوری بشینیم و منتظر باشیم این کودکی که slow to warm up هستش یا این شیوه نوع تمپرمنت هستش اون موقعی که اون کودک آمادگی پیدا کرد و آمادگی نشون داد اون موقع اونجا حضور داشته باشیم پرزنس نشون بدیم با او کانکت بکنیم و کمکش بکنیم که اون تجربه‌ای که حالا او آمادگی داره انجام بده و آقای دکتر دان سیگل گفتن که این بهترین شیوهی هستش که میتونه یه مادر و پدر با کودکش رابطه برقرار بکنه و او رو کمک بکنه که احساس امنیت بکنه با تجربه نو و تجربه جدیدی که به اصطلاح داشته. بسیار بسیار نکته مهمی. Thank you so much. It's so poignant, so important. I go to so many gatherings where, especially in our culture, I know culture is one of your areas of interest. There is this push because the sort of the general understanding of a confident kid is a kid who is easy temperament and they're not slow to warm up with and usually children who have the shyness tendency get outcasted or labeled or put in these overstimulating positions where I've witnessed myself, the children who are crying, they're in distress, they're having so much emotional and even sometimes physical pain, and the parents are just so angry and ashamed and frustrated. And you know, I saw a parent storm out of a birthday party because they were so outraged that their kid was not able to. And so you're saying that in order to stop these cycles of trauma, and I believe, you know, there's certain nationalities who have this epigenetics and are exposed to trauma more than others, and ours, I believe, with the Persian heritage, we have this. So we got to be mindful and have this mindset of triggers. And when we're starting to feel shame or we're starting to feel these negative affective experiences, to tap into that inner core and the integration of if we are able to tap into it and to respond based on that integration and to do what's right and good for the child. And not to be in a narcissistic relationship where we're unable to see what's good for the child. But it's oftentimes a difficult challenge because you have to have mindsight.
It's the hardest job.
Awareness.
Absolutely. But that's why it begins. That's why I wrote Parenting from the Inside Out, because it really begins inside of you. And that's the good news, because you're empowered to actually develop that self-awareness.
And I enjoyed that book so much, and it helped me as a parent so much. And I highly recommend for those of you who are pregnant, about to have a child, or thinking about having children, to really read this book, Parenting from the Inside Out. And are they able to connect with you? Do you have a community, a hub where they can ask you questions, invite you to conferences?
Yeah, if you go to drdansiegel.com, then we have all sorts of ways of connecting people to me or other people.
Okay, so drdansiegel.com is the website. It is such an important topic, especially when it comes to consciousness and pervasive leadership, as you mentioned, and you know, finding those who have the potential for soul leadership to join in forces and to really connect. I think this educational system, where you know, homeschool connection happens, that linkage is such an important one.
Absolutely.
And I know that you're involved with many programs that implement mindfulness at schools or develop mindfulness curriculums. I know at our school, Curtis School, it's been a couple of years now that we're trying to integrate mindfulness into the educational system. And the kids are responding really well. Do you have any recommendations for teachers and educators when it comes to mind and this journey to the heart of being human? How to implement this awareness, or how to take this awareness and apply it into their classrooms or their relationship with
well, we
kids?
do. I mean, you know, the book Brainstorm, for example, teaches adolescents, their parents, and their teachers how to actually integrate the brain and integrate relationships. So it has a step-by-step program, really, that many schools are using now, so that's exciting. For younger kids, Tina Bryson and I wrote The Whole Brain Child and No Drama Discipline, and we have a new book called Yes Brain, which kind of gives educators and parents tools for understanding the science of development and then what you can do in the classroom or at home to actually try to create this internal integration, which is a source of resilience for your child. So we have these programs now that are in these workbooks or books that are available.
Fantastic. And I know that next week, I believe, we will have Tina on our show.
Oh, great. Wonderful. Tell her I said
So
hi.
we are all linking up and trying to get the message out. It's such an important message and mission. And I think for those of you who are interested in picking up a new book over the holidays, Mind, A Journey to the Heart of Being Human by Dr. Dan Siegel, and years of research, interpersonal neurobiological wisdom, experiences. So this is your journey in some ways. Is this about your mind?
Well, it's about trying to figure out why no one defines the mind and invites you as the reader to go on a journey with me. So I decided to make it itself a journey book so that the reader could actually be invited to go on a journey reflecting on her own mind, on his own experiences, these ways where it isn't just a book giving you information, it's a book inviting you to address questions and open up your own mind to what the mind actually is.
One question that comes up for me personally is the why. And so why am I here? You know, why now, and why the relationships and all the meaningful conversations. What are some recommendations or suggestions in joining you on this journey with the why and exploring the mind and applying it to integration?
Yeah, when people, I think, come to feel that when their life is in chaos or their life is in rigidity, things aren't going well, and they feel unempowered and uninformed about what to do. What this approach does is it gives you the why of what your mind is there to do, which is to create more integration. When integration, which is differentiating or making special different aspects of your life, like different people in a relationship, or left and right side of the brain, or higher and lower parts of the brain, you can learn about all this. When you are empowered with that information, you then can move your life to a more integrated way of being. And so this is what's been so exciting. For example, I wrote a book called Mindsight, and just reading the book has empowered people to move out of prolonged states of chaos or prolonged states of rigidity and actually move toward a more harmonious state of well-being. And so that's been extremely rewarding to see people empowered by knowledge and by skills that you can learn in just this book format. So it's been quite something to see that. The same thing is true with parenting. You know, integration is our main goal for little children, middle children, and adolescents. The goal of childhood and adolescence is to create a more integrated brain, and you as a parent can learn how to do that. So all of these books, whether it's the textbook I wrote, Developing Mind, or Parenting from the Inside Out with Mary Hartzell, or Tina Bryson's books with me, you know, of The Whole Brain Child and No Drama Discipline, or, you know, the book Brainstorm, and then Tina's and my new book, Yes Brain. They're all about how do you work as a parent or an educator to create more integration in your child or adolescent's life. Mindsight is more about what do you do to understand how to do that in your own life. And this book, Mind, is showing you that when you ask these questions of who we are, of what we are, even of why you're here, integration comes out as a natural, scientifically grounded, but also intuitively accessible and practical way of opening your life up to be having more well-being.
Right. So on one end, you're experiencing this well-being. On the other hand, personally for me, there's this mystery of flow. You know, when time stops, there's timelessness, there's flow, and things just fall into place. So when I'm more mindful, when I'm more in that space of integration, and I'm able to tap into that inner sort of wisdom, things just happen more effortlessly. And
yeah, because self-organization is a natural integration, which comes from self-organization, is a natural arising, and a lot of times we just have to get out of our own way.
Right. That's right. That's such a good point.
Yeah.
So form, in many ways, is restricting us, and when we get out of form, whether it's in our mind or spirit or, you know, consciousness, we tap into that flow and connectivity and interconnection. Do you think that perhaps ancient wisdom plays a significant role in bringing us awareness, especially in today's modern flow and how things are moving in the modern world?
Well, it's a great question. You know, I think there's a huge amount of lessons to be learned from ancient wisdom. Rumi's poetry, for example, or any of the teachings of various wisdom traditions. What I've tried to do in my own work is stay completely grounded in science, and through empirically established approaches, whether they're looking at the brain or looking at culture, try to put together all the different sciences and see what it tells us about how to live a wise life, how to live a life of well-being. And when the science has been combined like that, the implications resonate with wisdom traditions. But for me, what I find in my teaching is that people really want to know that with all the opinions out there on the internet and books that people write, that something has an empirical, research-proven, scientific basis.
Yeah.
So what we try to do at the Mindsight Institute is stay very grounded in science. And we've been asked a lot to teach in different wisdom traditions, different spiritual groups, and we are happy to participate, but we stay completely grounded in science and are wonderfully excited when it overlaps with wisdom traditions, but we don't draw on them formally because that's not what science is.
Yes.
And it's fantastic that now, according to many people, this is a bridge between the world of science and the world of spirituality. And that's incredibly meaningful for me and for many people, that we can dissolve the boundaries of those two worlds.
That's beautiful. So در رابطه در پل زدن در وصل بین علم ساینس که ایشون بک‌گراندشون کاملا ساینتیفیک هستن و اون چارچوب تمام صحبت‌ها و مطالبی که می‌نویسند و تدریسشون در چارچوب علم و علوم به اصطلاح روانشناسی و مغز و اعصاب هستش. ایشون اون پوزیشنشون رو از ساینس هیچ وقت جدا نکردن، ولی در چارچوب ساینتیفیک فریمشون همیشه وقتی که این پل زده شده به ancient wisdom و یا اون Eastern philosophies، اون فلسفه های شرق، ایشون فرمودن رومی و یا بودا و یا کارهایی که شاید در شرق بیشتر به عنوان wisdom و یا علم شناخته شده، ایشون اون پل‌ها رو به دنبالش هستن و به دنبال این وصل و فصلایی هستن که برای خیلی از ماها که Eastern Western philosophies رو integrate میکنیم خیلی meaningful هستش. در هر صورت بسیار بسیار یاد گرفتیم. It was such an honor, such a joy. I really feel so happy inside.
Oh, good. Thank you.
It's such an honor to have these conversations, meaningful conversations. Hopefully these conversations will continue in our communities. I know many of you are interested in inviting Dr. Dan Siegel into your communities, whether it's a school community or I know you're very busy and you're traveling all the time, but if you are interested in booking Dr. Siegel, to go ahead to your website, drdansiegel.com, and reach out to Jessica, and make those communications and attempts. If you are lucky, you will be able to have this encounter with Dr. Dan Siegel and learn from his wisdom and be touched and awakened. So, Dr. Siegel, thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Happy holidays, and wishing you and your family a joyful lifetime, happy long life.
Oh, thank you. To yours too.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
God bless. Bye.